sobriety isn't all puppy dogs and rainbows. My character defects are going to flare up. The one thing I don't do is I don't pick up a drink, and I wake up every day knowing that I'm an alcoholic and knowing that if I pick up, I lose everything that I have. So to keep it simple, just don't pick up a drink and get to a meeting.
Welcome to the Daily Reflection Podcast with your hosts Michael L. and Lee M. This is a show where we provide experience, strength, and hope through interviews with members of the recovery community. The show is not affiliated with any 12-step or recovery program, although you may hear them mentioned throughout the course of an interview. Today's January 29th, and the Daily Reflection is the joy of sharing. I'm delighted to welcome Brendan K. to the show. He's a member of my home group, and I know he's been through some challenges in sobriety, but he always carries an extremely powerfully positive message. I hope you enjoy the episode. Brendan K., welcome to the podcast.
Yeah, thanks, Mike.
It's great to have you on the show. Would you start us off by reading the Daily Reflection for January 29th?
Yeah, Mike, thanks for having me for the Daily Reflection Podcast, January 29th, the joy of sharing. Life will take on new meaning, to watch people recover, to see them help others, to watch loneliness vanish, to see fellowship grow up about you, to have a host of friends. This is an experience you must not miss. We know you will not want to miss it. Frequent contact with newcomers and with each other is the bright spot of our lives. Alcoholics Anonymous, page 89. To know that each newcomer with whom I share has the opportunity to experience the relief that I have found in this fellowship fills me with joy and gratitude. I feel that all the things described in AA will come to pass for them as they have for me, if they seize the opportunity and embrace the program fully.
Thanks for reading that. Now, I know we booked this a couple weeks ago, and you specifically selected this reflection. Can you tell me why you selected this one?
Yeah, for me, the reflection itself has a very hopeful sound to it. I didn't get sober to continue being miserable, to continue wanting to not wake up the next morning. I got sober because I wanted all of what life had to bring to me. And I've gotten that through AA and from other people sharing, what it talks about in this reading, to have a fellowship grow up about me, to have a host of friends, real friends. And I think you understand that. I think anybody in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous really understands the difference between like friends and real friends. The people that you can go to with anything and everything. In fact, it's how you save your life, is finding the people that you can really talk to. And then being on the other side of that after some of your own time, to be the kind of person that other people want to come to me for my experience, strength, and hope, or just because they wanted to get something off their chest and they know that they have a friend and confidant that they can talk to without judgment or without any hesitation of thinking that, something they say to me will end up, making its rounds through every meeting in town. That's I think a major sticking point for me of why I like, just the joy of sharing. Other things as well, like I was thinking about this earlier, having read it a few times throughout the day, and the thing that the visualization of how you boil a frog was really jumping out to me as I kept reading this. When you're a newcomer, or I should say, when I was a newcomer, I didn't see that change happening in myself. I just kept doing what you guys told me to do. I kept going to meetings. I made coffee when I was asked to make coffee. I set up chairs. I took down chairs. I whatever it was that I was told to do. Um, I didn't see my recovery happening for me, but other people did. And I was 25 when I joined the rooms of AA. I have 10 years sober now, and with with that time, I can look back and see the way the people in that room took me under their wing, and I'm sure that they know what it was like to see the light turn on in me and in my life. Um, you know, the wording in the podcast, to watch people recover, to see them help others, and to watch loneliness vanish. Those are the things that I didn't see happening in my own life, but they saw in me. It's amazing to have a few one days at a time under my belt, to now be able to see that slow transformation in people, to see the light go off in their head, like, oh, this is amazing. Or even if it's not amazing in their life, they're not drinking. One thing I think we all have to remember is that sobriety isn't all puppy dogs and rainbows. Watching other people get sober and the light turn on and the excitement they bring to their day, especially with our home group at 7:15 in the morning, and at a time when a lot of people are still groggy and sleep, just trying to wake up. Everyone's got their cup of coffee, which is no different, I guess, than any other meeting, but still kind of like trying to wake up, and to hear the excitement in people's voice, to see how not just about like their zest for AA, but how their zest for like life outside of the rooms, and how excited that they can be to realize that life just doesn't have to be like it used to be anymore. My life didn't end when I stopped drinking. In fact, you know, I often wish people a happy birthday when I know it's their anniversary. It's something that we can take on as a second birthday in our lives. Um, but to see that the way that their life uh, continues to grow and expand, and how the light turns on in their head is just it's amazing, and it's a blessing to be able to see that in them, since I couldn't see it in myself.
So, what brought you to the rooms?
So at my bottom, I had a physical bottom. I got in a fight with the sidewalk and I lost. From what I can gather, since I was a blackout drinker, from what I can gather, I tripped on the sidewalk running, trying to get back to my apartment from whatever bar I was at that night. Um, and I had broken my wrist. I had partially bitten through my tongue. The whole right side of my face was scraped up. That was the physical bottom. The emotional bottom that I had, that it took time in AA to realize, the thoughts of not wanting to wake up the next day, but not having the courage to kill myself. That was when I got here, I thought it was a high bottom. The more I stayed, the more I realized that uh, those thoughts aren't the normal thoughts of most people. Um, that's the essence of what got me here. And when I showed up to the rooms, I just kept coming back, long enough to hear that I didn't have to have the deeper bottoms of the deeper, I don't know, material bottoms, the loss of home, job, car, wife, kids. Um, I heard that I didn't have to have those yet. You're eligible too. I didn't have those yet, but I knew that they were out there for me. Um, I came to the rooms because I wanted to avoid that issue. I stayed because I heard I didn't have to, and you guys showed me the way. Um, I heard enough to I heard enough of my story in everyone else to realize that, despite my maybe initial thoughts that maybe I didn't really belong here, um, you know, I recognized a lot of the thought processes and the stories um, that made me realize that, in fact, other people that are here did the same things I did, and I'm a lot more like them than I thought prior.
It's amazing that you can see. It sounds like what I'm hearing is that I think you saw your trajectory and it was verified and validated through the stories of the people that you got sober with. Have you ever had doubts that maybe it wouldn't have gotten that bad?
Uh, I don't think I've ever really had any of those doubts. In fact, I don't know if I ever really thought about that, to be honest. Um, one of my favorite things that I've heard said in the rooms of AA was, when the house is on fire, you don't stop to figure out how it started. You put the fire out. Um, and I put the fire out, and by the time the fire was out, I realized it wasn't necessary to figure out how it started. Um, what I know is that if I drink alcohol, um, I can't control what I'm going to do. Uh, it'll probably end up in a blackout, and nothing good is going to come from it. Um, what I what I can say is, at 25 years old, I was dumb enough to not know what was going on, but smart enough to not mess it up, um, and to realize that I had an opportunity to have the rest of my life in front of me. I didn't consider myself to be somebody. I didn't think I was going to make it to 30, and I'm not quite sure I wanted to be honest. Um, at 25, but now halfway through my 30s, you know, to realize that I have the rest of my life in front of me. Uh, there's so much I would have missed out on had I not stuck around and stayed. Um, I'm grateful that I was I'm grateful that I was too stupid to know what was going on before it had already happened. And by the time, like I said, by the time it had happened, I realized that there was no going back. To hear a 94-year old talking about a head full of AA and a belly full of booze just doesn't mix, and you know just stories like that, like, I knew that I would never be able to enjoy another drink again. Whether I had doubts or not, if I tried to drink again, it might be fun the first couple days. I might enjoy it. I might be able to get away with a drink for the first couple days, but I know that that's not going to last. Yeah, I can't say I've ever doubted being here or that I belonged here.
So this is a weird time, folks that are listening to this from the future. We're at the tail end of the pandemic, and AA, for me anyway, was about the connection, and making those connections in person was a whole lot easier. Right, you're in physical meetings next to somebody, and I feel like you could just relate to people better. For somebody listening that might be thinking they want to go to a meeting, I want you to describe what that first meeting might be like for someone.
Well, I think that first meeting, you kind of figure it out where it is. If when you find the church, you find the coffee can with the cigarette butts in it, and you find the stairs that go down into the basement of the church. That pretty much just um, qualifies every AA room that I've almost ever been to.
But what about today in the pandemic?
In the pandemic, you know, I s- I love that it's a 7:15 meeting and I can drink my own coffee in my sweatpants, sitting on my couch. The differences are stark. I I love that you mentioned the connection that we have in the physical room. Uh, but I also love that there are people in the rooms that aren't from Philadelphia. I don't even live in Philadelphia anymore, and I still get to join because I know that this is an amazing group of people. I've been to meetings in Dublin, Ireland, um, and I've given my lead in Austin, Texas. Talking about having a connection, and somewhere in the big book it talks about meeting people that we would have never other mixed with or met before. I've heard so many stories that I wouldn't have heard, and people that I wouldn't have ever met, and perspectives I would have never gained um, through the universality of Zoom. um, but there really is something about the physical location of the room. My original home group here in Pittsburgh, I can close my eyes and I know the exact color blue of the trim that borders the walls, and I can still tell you how to get into the where the cabinet was that held the coffee makers, and the way you had to just tilt it ever so correctly to get it in or out of that cabinet based on the height, um, or the swirling pattern on the floor in the room in Philadelphia, or how you had to go through some doors to get back to the kitchen to make the coffee. All these little things about the rooms themselves, and to me, it's kind of like the old saying about a church isn't the building; it's the people that are in it. Um, you know, I love that so many people came through the room in Philadelphia that were traveling business people and brought their story. Uh, but I also loved the the people that you just knew they were as much a fixture of that room as the chairs that were in it, or the same coffee pot was going to be in the same place as you know so and so was going to be in their same seat every time, and it just I knew that was a comfort in and of itself. When potentially anything else in my life was going crazy, I knew that if I walked in the door and looked to my left, I could see you sitting on the wall, Mike. Or if I looked across the room, I knew who else I would be able to see, and just having that kind of stability in my life. Yeah, definitely. There's that connection that you talk about. Um, I can't. If you had to say like which one do you prefer, I'm not sure I could pick. Um, Zoom over physical room.
Do you think it's more difficult to connect with the newcomer in an online meeting?
Um, I don't think it's necessarily more difficult. Look, if I didn't want to get sober, I wouldn't have gotten sober, and if I didn't want to get sober, I wouldn't have called the numbers on the packet that was handed to me. And I know that our groups have done an amazing job of trying to get physical packets to people, but we use the chat functions, and we message the entire group or the person individually, and we give them our phone numbers, and we recognize them, we say hi to them when they show up in the room before the meeting starts, and we welcome them back when we see them for the second time, and we get excited to see that. And there have been so many newcomers in this last almost year since the pandemic started that have become staples in our meetings, that that we start to wonder if they're okay when they're not there. Yeah, it's different than taking them out, like forcing them out to coffee after the meeting. You can't just like force them out and set it down. But I was also taught that I can't get anyone sober and I can't make anyone take a drink. And the fact that we are there every day and they know that, I don't know if it's self-centered or not, but like if you want what we have and you're willing to do what we do to get it, you can have what we have. And that reflection, the daily reflection, even talks about that to some extent. I I think it comes down to if you want it bad enough, then you'll reach back out as a newcomer to the people that are reaching out their hands and saying, "You don't ever have to feel like this again," or "I was there once too." There might be a couple more days between my drink and theirs, uh, but I still can play the tape through, and I still remember that feeling of walking into the room the first time, uh, maybe not so sure of myself, and then hearing my story, and then realizing that that's where I belonged. And the program, attraction, not promotion. The attraction is what got me when I saw everyone smiling faces and laughing and carrying on. That's what got there on my own accord. You guys are what kept me there. Whether it's in person or on Zoom, I don't think I don't think the experience is any different.
I've heard it said that, in sobriety, our problems don't go away. We still experience life. And tell us a little bit about maybe a challenge that you've experienced in sobriety that the program really helped you get through.
Yeah, absolutely. When you're in the storm, you're battening down the hatches and doing everything you can to make it through. And when you come out the other side, uh, you always look back and say, "Man, that was rough, but I'm so glad I made it through." And this is what I learned from it. And the longer you're in, the longer I'm in AA, the more I can use those storms that were in my life to in the past to get through the storms I might be going through today, or the experience of strength and hope that I've heard in the rooms from other people that have gone through similar things. I know I can count on those to get me through that storm. Currently, I'm, one of the unemployed people because of the pandemic and having issues finding a job. And to me, the storm might not be completely related to having been there before with having lost a job in the past, but the storm is knowing that, you know on the other side there will be greener pastures, and knowing that when I came in and I did my first step and admitted I was an alcoholic, then my sponsor moved me to two, and we realized that I'm not in charge, and there's something out there greater than myself that is in charge. And in step three, we started working on turning my will over to that. And today I know that despite my lack of job and the frustrations that it brings, I know that my higher power has my back. I know that he got me through my drinking, and the shit storm of that. It's easier to turn over your will and your life to the care of a power that you don't understand, or only understand a little bit, when you know that you can, or when you're able to see how that power got you through another shit storm. I don't know what I'm supposed to be learning from this experience right now. It might just be patience, and it might just be that I need to remember that I'm not in charge. It could be as simple as that. But there might be a deeper lesson to learn, and I won't know what that lesson is until I've gotten through the storm.
It sounds like it takes faith and the willingness to turn your life and will over to something like that is really powerful. Did you always have faith?
Yeah, so I often joke, or kind of break the ice with that topic by laughing, and also calling myself a recovering Catholic, um, or using the line that I did my 9 years a hard time in Catholic elementary school. And yeah, it was certainly something that I was brought up with. It's not something that I always relied on. I think I took it for granted. As soon as it wasn't being, I hate to use the word forced, but I can't think of a better word. As soon as it wasn't, being pushed on my life, I kind of got away from it. And although I don't consider myself religious anymore, I still use that sort of framework as a basis for my belief in the power that is greater than myself. And I mean no disrespect to anybody uh, of religion or of faith. The same way that I won't stay sober just for that hour in a meeting. I also believe that the hour that I spend at church isn't isn't the entire picture of my life. And, we talk about in AA practicing these principles in all my affairs. And for me, I really need to keep that in mind, that I can say all the right things in the meeting, but if I'm not living it, it doesn't make a lick of difference. Um, and so while I'm not necessarily closing myself off to organized religion at some other point in the future, currently it's not a part of my life. But I'm grateful that it was in my past to give me some sort of framework or reference of believing that there's something out there. And I just choose to call it God. I know I didn't create this earth. I don't know what did, but whatever it is, it's certainly taken care of me over the last, since I was born, I suppose, whether I want to do it to see it or not.
So what would you tell a newcomer?
I think that has to be just keeping it simple with, don't drink and go to meetings. I guess there's another old saying, how do you become an old timer in AA? You don't drink and you don't die, and I guess that's the simple message. The elaborated version of that is that things aren't going to always go perfect. I'm not always going to work a perfect third step that I'm talking about just now. I'm not always going to, my character defects are going to flare up. But the one thing I don't do is I don't pick up a drink, and I wake up every day knowing that I'm an alcoholic, and being able to play that tape through and knowing that if I pick up, I lose everything that I have. So to keep it simple, just don't pick up a drink and get to a meeting.
Anything else you want to share with the audience before we wrap?
Just my gratitude for this platform to share my story, for you, Mike. The amazing thing about AA is how we've always found a different way to get the message and share it with each other. Whether it was in the old days of the big book or the grapevine, we've always found a way to get the message of experience, strength, and hope to those that need it. So I'm just grateful to be a part of it. Even if it doesn't help out a single listener, talking about it tonight helped me out, and it gave me the connection with you. Talking about connections earlier, having this connection is going to keep me from taking a drink for the rest of the night, and probably won't drink tomorrow either, but we'll deal with that when we get there.
Brendan, thanks so much for spending time with us.
Yeah, thanks, Mike.
Thanks to Brendan for spending some time with us. And if you want to find more information about the Daily Reflection Podcast, you can find us online at blog.dailyreflectionpodcast.com. We write about recovery, blog articles there. We're also on Facebook at facebook.com/groups/Daily Reflection Podcast. Thanks, everybody. Have a great day.